Iframes are short for inline frames, and what they allow you to do is to add additional pages, other HTML documents into your web page. So let's take a quick look at an example at the Mozilla Developer Network, and they do have an example of an iframe that they're framing in the content coming from this web URL, and they've added it into their web page. So let's try out adding in an iframe onto our website. So going into the HTML tags, and the iframes are just indicated with an iframe tag. And then just as we saw with images, that the source is the most important part of this tag, that you do need to have additional attribute information for something to happen. Otherwise, you get a default frame, and the frame itself is just a blank frame because it's not referencing any page. It's also always good practice to include the title attribute within the iframe. This is used by screen readers in order to read content within the iframe. And also styling with the iframe now is done with CSS as opposed to updating the height attribute and the width attribute, which are also attributes within the iframe as options. So let's add in a source, and I'm going to select the Mozilla Developer Network web page as the source for our framed content. And we'll just add that in and refresh. And looks like we got refuse to connect to the iframe of the web page. And if you do encounter this type of issue, sometimes it will be if the HTTP reference is HTTPS and you're loading from an HTTP page. So there are different headers within this website that could potentially be blocking the framing of the content. And more likely the issue here is that we're still within the file protocol. We're not using the HTTP protocol. So how about we try a website where I do control the headers, and this is going to be my website. So just grabbing the web URL and going into the source. I'm going to paste the website address as the source for the framed, the inline framed content. And let's do a quick save and refresh. And there we see we've got the content being framed in to our web page. So it actually can look like that it's actually sitting within your website. There's some options that you can set the title. So we should always add in the title within the attributes and save that as the course site. And there's also other attributes as well that you can add in. And I'm going to add style to set the width and also the height. And we'll save that. So that will adjust the width and the height. And we can also update the border. So this is all cascading style sheets, and we're going to look further at this later on as we progress through the lessons and we look at styling. So you can set the border as well. And this is going to affect the border that's being wrapped around. There's also the scroll options. So if you want to get if you don't want to have a border at all, you can always do a border none. And that will remove the border completely. So that will make it a borderless. So let's do a few more neat things with iframes. So if we give the iframe a name, I'm going to just call it my frame. You can give it any name you want. This is going to be the name that we're going to reference it as. And let's create a hyperlink. So that will allow us to set the target of the hyperlink into the iframe and set the target. And the target that we're going to be aiming at is going to be whatever the name of the frame is. So it's just going to be referred to it as my frame. So refresh. So now we have our hyperlink there. So if I click it, it actually updates the frame content with whatever page we've specified. And you can also use hyperlinks with targets, and you can target the parent frame. So that will update the parent frame as well. So let's create a brand new page, and we'll just do a quick one with that. I'll just call this test one. We'll create our HTML tags. So we need a head tag, opening and closing, title tag, opening and closing. I'll give it a title of test one. And then within the body, then we're going to create a few different hyperlinks. So one is going to go to the parent, and let's create the hyperlink. We'll call this one self. And then the other one is going to be actually the parent. So just copy that, and this should be self, and add in a line break, and then the parent hyperlink, And I'll just copy the code that we have. And we'll make an update. So instead of targeting itself, it'll target the parent. And we're actually framing it from the index, so I need to update this. So I'll just update these both to be about, so that we can see the difference of behavior when we frame in this page. Let's go back to the index, and we'll copy the frame content. We'll create a second frame. I'll remove the name, and we're going to simply be linking the source to that new file that we just created. So let's refresh index. And now we've got the framed content within here. I'm going to add the border so that we can see the two different frames that we have on our page. So the first one links to self. So if I click this, then the about page gets linked within there. So anything that's linking within the self, then we can navigate through and we can link through all the different pages. Let's do a refresh. This time I'm going to click parent. We're going to see the difference that the parent updates the full web URL of the parent. So it actually updated that index page to move to the about page instead of going within itself where we saw with what self does. So go ahead and try this out. Create another HTML page. Create iframe to add that to another page, to your index page. And then also create a link that's going to link out and update the contents of the iframe whenever the link gets clicked, and updating the contents with whatever href value is being added into the hyperlink attribute. And you can be ready to move on to the next lesson.